We are shown a scene from 3 years ago where an island is in turmoil. A soldier asks his captain, "Aren't we going to help them?" The captain replies, "You know we can't do anything because our weapons are useless against them. So, we should leave this situation to the hunters." On the island, numerous hunters are fighting giant ants. The captain adds, "If we let them escape, everything will be over. So, everyone try to stop them here." We see some hunters attacking the ants with their magical powers, but the attacks have no effect. The ants counterattack, killing and devouring the hunters. One of the hunters thinks to himself, "It looks like my time has come," but just then, an S-rank hunter named Min saves him and heals his wounds with his healing powers. More ants attack, but Min's partner, Yun-sok, saves him. Together, Yun-sok and Yen-ho defeat the remaining ants. The other hunters cheer for the S-rank hunters, and Yun-sok says to Min, "You moved too fast this time. I'm sorry, but I wanted to save some lives, and I knew you'd save me anyway." Suddenly, a large white ant appears and attacks them. Yun-ho and Yun-sok charge toward the ant, with Yun-sok using his lightning to attack and Yun-ho breaking the ant's teeth, using one of them to pierce the ant and kill it. But soon, more white ants appear, charging toward them. Yun-ho exclaims, "Looks like it's about to get even more fun." They both start fighting the ants together. Meanwhile, an S-rank hunter watches from afar and comments, "It seems they arrived just in time. Now it's our turn to handle things." Choi, using his unique powers, kills red-colored ants, but the white ones remain unaffected. He instructs the other hunters to attack the white ants. We are then told about an event from over 10 years ago, when a portal suddenly opened, connecting this world to various dimensions filled with monsters. Normal human weapons were ineffective against these monsters. Some humans, however, developed special abilities and became known as hunters. These hunters were ranked based on their powers, from S rank at the top, followed by A, B, C, D, and E ranks. Once a hunter's powers awakened, they couldn't upgrade their abilities further. The scene shifts to the present, where a portal opens in a construction building. A hunter named Kim prepares for his next mission in the dungeon, but his friend Park shows up. Kim says, "What are you doing here? I thought you quit being a hunter." Park replies, "My wife is pregnant again, so I need to make money from this mission." Kim reassures him, "Don't worry. If this mission is successful, we'll make a lot of money." Just then, their main character, Jin-Woo, arrives. The other hunters are happy to see him, but he isn't the strongest. In fact, he's the weakest hunter, an E rank who was once hospitalized after being injured in a low-level dungeon. Jin-Woo overhears some hunters talking about him, thinking the mission must be easy if he's there. Jin-Woo reflects that what they're saying is true. Ju-hai, a fellow hunter, approaches him, asking about his injuries. Jin-Woo says, "It's just the usual. I got injured in an E rank dungeon." Ju-hee comments, "Didn't they have a healer?" Jin-Woo replies, "They were all high-ranked hunters, so they didn't need a healer. And it was my fault for being so weak." They soon prepare to enter the portal. Song wants to be the captain for this mission, and no one objects because he's a high-ranked hunter. As they prepare, Jin-Woo looks at his knife and thinks, "This is a small knife with little power, but it's all I could afford with my income. Let's see if I can do something impressive today." Meanwhile, President Go-gun, the head of the Hunters Association, discusses government meetings, emphasizing the importance of not letting dungeons break. A dungeon break occurs when a dungeon isn't cleared within 7 days, releasing monsters into the world and causing chaos. As the hunters fight monsters inside the dungeon, they collect magic crystals called mana crystals and magic gems. These are valuable and can be used to create powerful weapons. President Go explains how hunters survive by selling these items and how the government is exploring ways to generate electricity using mana crystals and magic gems as a form of green energy. Jin-Woo manages to kill a monster and retrieve a crystal but is attacked, breaking his knife. Just as he's about to be killed, Park saves him, and Ju-hee heals his wounds. The hunters continue to bravely face the monsters, gathering crystals and gems. However, Jin-Woo feels disheartened that he only obtained a low-level gem after risking his life. Suddenly, they discover a cave. Kim says it could be a double dungeon, a rare phenomenon where a second dungeon exists within the first. Song suggests reporting it to the Hunters Association, but Kim argues that they should explore the cave for potential treasures. After a vote, the decision is left to Jin-Woo, who chooses to proceed, as he needs money to support his hospitalized mother and his sister's education. Inside the cave, they find a strange room with old statues, some holding musical instruments. Song deciphers ancient writing that lists 3 rules: worship God, praise God, and trust God. Those who disobey won't leave alive. Suddenly, Ju-hee notices that the eyes of one large statue have moved and are staring at them. Just then, the door slams shut, trapping them inside. One hunter panics and tries to leave, but the statue guarding the door kills him. Jin-Woo realizes that the hunter, though stronger than him, was killed instantly. The statues, it seems, are dangerous. Song speculates that if one statue can move, others might too. Jin-Woo notices the largest statue looking directly at him, and the scene becomes tense as they face an unknown, deadly threat. Suddenly, the statue attacks the hunters with lasers from his eyes, but Jin-Woo quickly shouts for everyone to get down. Still, many hunters were caught in the attack. After the attack, Jin-Woo sees that the captain has lost one of his hands and begins bandaging it to stop the bleeding. Ju-hee, despite having healing powers, doesn't treat him because she's too scared, and the captain doesn't blame her. This fear is the reason Juhi, a B-rank healer, is only sent on low-ranking missions. The captain himself has been on a B-rank mission before and, based on his experience, recognizes that the danger they're facing now is as powerful as an S-rank threat. The captain recalls the rules engraved on the stone. First, worship God. Second, praise God. And third, have faith in God. Those who don't follow these rules won't leave alive. Jin-Woo realizes that the largest statue is the one representing God. On the other hand, we meet the girl named Song-yi, who recently joined the Hunter Association. She's a friend of Jin-Woo's sister, Jaina, and both study at the same school. Song-yi asks Jaina if her brother is also a hunter, to which Jaina responds that, yes, he is, but only an E-rank hunter who always returns injured. Song-yi replies that if she were in his place, that would never happen. Back at the temple, as Jin-Woo and the captain are trying to figure out what to do next, a hunter declares that he won't die here. He recently joined a major guild and is confident that with his fast speed, he'll escape before the statue attacks. He makes a dash for it, but the god statue incinerates him in the blink of an eye. Everyone realizes that the statue can kill them at any moment if it wishes, crushing them like ants. Yet, they wonder why it hasn't killed them all yet. Jin-Woo recalls the rules written on the stone and understands they belong to this temple. He stands up, bows his head in front of the god statue, and the statue does not kill him. He tells the others to bow their heads as well. As long as their heads are down, the statue won't harm them. The rule about worshipping God is being fulfilled in this way. Everyone follows Jin-Woo's lead and bows. The god statue seems pleased, even smiling. Feeling safe, the group stands up, but the god statue also rises from its throne and begins moving toward them, intending to crush them. Jin-Woo quickly realizes they must fulfill the second rule, which is to praise God. One hunter steps forward, claiming he knows how to pray, and starts chanting. However, his words are incorrect, and the god statue crushes him underfoot. A woman also gets crushed. All hunters panic and start running around, trying to save themselves. Park, one of the hunters, doesn't want to die because his family is waiting for him at home. He hides in a corner, but the statue there slices him in half. Jin-Woo is unsure how to properly praise this god, who seems more like a demon, but he refuses to give up. He starts looking for clues and notices that the statues in the corners are holding musical instruments instead of weapons. Jin-Woo tells everyone to stand under the statues with musical instruments. The captain does so, and since the statue has no weapon, it doesn't attack him. Instead, it begins playing music. Kim follows and is also safe. Jin-Woo moves under a drum statue with Juhi, but it doesn't react, meaning only one person can stand under each statue. He leaves Juhi there and runs for safety, but he makes a mistake and stands under the wrong statue, which injures him badly. Despite his injuries, he drags himself to the correct statue, and it begins playing music too. With all the statues playing music, the god statue returns to its throne. It seems that praising God was achieved by playing the music. Juhi rushes to Jin-Woo, who has lost a leg, and tries to heal him with her powers. However, healing him causes damage to her own body. Meanwhile, Mr. Kim blames the captain for their situation, since he was the one who led them inside, even though they had voted against it. The captain takes responsibility. As they argue, a platform rises in the center of the temple. Jin-Woo recognizes it as an altar for sacrificing a living being to the god. The third rule, have faith in God, means someone must be sacrificed. Kim puts a sword to the captain's throat, suggesting he be the one to offer the sacrifice, especially since the captain had agreed to take responsibility. The captain walks toward the altar. Jin-Woo knows it's not just the captain's fault. They all voted to enter. As the captain approaches the altar, flames ignite. He's unsure what to do next. Jin-Woo asks if anyone will come to save them, to which the captain replies that the portal has been open for 7 days, so a rescue is unlikely. If they fail, this god statue could escape into the human world. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo's sister is at the hospital, talking to their mother, who is in a coma. Back in the temple, Jin-Woo instructs everyone to approach the altar. Flames ignite for each person who does, and then a blue flame lights up, opening the temple door. However, the blue flame starts to fade over time, and the temple's guards begin advancing toward them. Jin-Woo notices that whenever he looks at a statue, it stops moving. He tells everyone to stare at the statues, which keeps them in place. However, a frightened girl runs for the door and escapes safely, but her flame goes out, and the door begins to close slightly. Jin-Woo doesn't know if the door is a trap or if they can really escape. Another hunter flees, leaving only 4 people behind. Jin-Woo tells the others not to move, as the blue flame might be a timer, and if it extinguishes completely, they might be allowed to leave. Kim argues that it could mean the opposite, that once the flame goes out, the door will close completely. Kim, realizing Jin-Woo has been helpful despite being weak, thanks him but decides to leave anyway. He apologizes and flees. Now only 3 remain. Jin-Woo starts crying but refuses to give up. The captain urges Juhi and Jin-Woo to leave, saying he'll stay behind and sacrifice himself. He believes it's his duty to save the younger ones. Juhi's legs, however, stop working due to overusing her powers. Jin-Woo, whose leg is gone, insists that the captain and Juhi leave, but the captain knocks Juhi unconscious and carries her out. Jin-Woo is left behind, facing certain death. He finds a sword and tries to fight the giant statues, but they are too powerful. One of them cuts off his hand. As he lies there, he thinks about how he wanted to become stronger but couldn't. Despite everything, he's still alive while others acted selfishly. As Jin-Woo is about to be finished off by the statues, a notification screen appears, stating that he has qualified to become a player. If he doesn't want to die, he must say yes. Before dying, Jin-Woo wished he had just one more chance. After that, something like a display appeared before him. Upon accepting the offer, a window popped up that said, "Congratulations, you are now a player." Jin-Woo then woke up in a hospital bed. His arms and legs, which had been severed, were fully intact. Before he could understand what was happening, two survey team members from the Hunters Association arrived. One introduced himself as Mr. Jang, while the other was calm. Jin-Woo asked what they needed from him, and Mr. Jang explained that Jin-Woo had been unconscious for 3 days. Jin-Woo then asked about Mr. Song and Ju-hee, to which they replied that both were fine, though Mr. Song had lost an arm and was forced to retire as a hunter. Ju-hee, on the other hand, had been traumatized and was undergoing therapy, making it unlikely she would return as a hunter. Mr. Jang then explained that only 6 people survived the double dungeon incident. A hunter's job is extremely dangerous, but when the White Tiger Guild arrived, they found no trace of any dungeon statues or dead bodies, except for Jin-Woo's report. If there had been any inconsistencies, they would have suspected Jin-Woo himself. They then asked if he had experienced another awakening. As explained in previous episodes, a person can only awaken once, determining their power level, which typically cannot be increased. However, in rare cases, someone can awaken a second time, gaining enough power to become an A-rank or even an S-rank hunter. Jin-Woo was excited at the possibility, and they brought out a mana stone to test his strength. But his power level registered at only 10, which was incredibly low, even lower than most E-rank hunters, whose scores usually exceed 70. Disappointed, the team left, wondering how Jin-Woo had managed to survive. Later, Jin-Woo noticed another display in front of him with unread messages. He recalled seeing a similar display before, but before he could interact with it, his sister, Gina, arrived. She scolded him for constantly getting into dangerous situations, saying that if he didn't straighten up, she'd quit school and start working to keep him from taking such dangerous jobs. Jin-Woo, noticing that only he could see the display, asked her if she could see it too, but she couldn't. He then asked her about games and how to open messages. The notification said he was now a player, and his daily quest was to complete strength training. Once his sister left, several windows appeared in front of him explaining that the system was designed to develop a player. If he failed to complete a mission, he would face penalties, but there would also be rewards. His task was to do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and run 10 kilometers. Jin-Woo initially ignored the task, but later realized the system was serious when he faced a penalty. Meanwhile, Jin-Chul reported to Chairman Go that it didn't seem like Jin-Woo had experienced a second awakening. The chairman felt fortunate that the dungeon hadn't broken, and classified it as a special case. Elsewhere, Youngin invited Cha to join an upcoming B-rank raid as an instructor, though she was hesitant, feeling unqualified for the role. Youngin assured her that the raid would serve as a test for the recruits and that her natural fighting style would inspire them. Back in Jin-Woo's storyline, his time to complete the strength training quest ran out, triggering a penalty. The ground shook, and Jin-Woo found himself transported to a desert-like world where his goal was to survive for 4 hours. He was terrified, but after much struggle, he finally completed the penalty quest and earned a reward. The next morning, Jin-Woo realized he couldn't take the system lightly anymore. He needed to seriously train if he wanted to grow stronger. Meanwhile, Ju-hee was contacted about a newly opened D-rank gate and was informed that Jin-Woo had regained consciousness, which made her very happy. She went to visit him with flowers. Back at the hospital, Jin-Woo was shown receiving 3 rewards: full recovery, which instantly refreshed him, ability points, which he could distribute as he wished, primarily investing in strength, and a random reward box, from which he obtained a key to a dungeon at exit 3 of the Hapjeong subway station. On the news, it was reported that new D-rank and C-rank gates had opened in various locations. Jin-Woo, meanwhile, visited his mother in the hospital, triggering a flashback of when she first fell into her eternal sleep, a condition that affected about 1 in every 10,000 people and was believed to be caused by mana energy from the gates. Jin-Woo had vowed to become a hunter to save her but hadn't succeeded until now. Determined to grow stronger, he headed to Hapjeong Station to use the key. Upon entering, he realized that he had entered a different dimension, and the gate locked behind him. He encountered 3 goblins and, despite his initial fear, fought them off, realizing how much stronger he had become. However, a wolf-like beast with metal teeth soon appeared. It destroyed his knife and left a scratch on his face, reminding Jin-Woo that he had no healer to rely on. After battling goblins, Jin-Woo's strength had clearly increased, but the Leaken was still too powerful for him to defeat barehanded. Realizing he couldn't win with just his fists, he accessed his inventory and pulled out a dangerous sword. With it, he slashed the Leaken in half, cutting it right through the middle. Jin-Woo was confused as to how he had obtained such an expensive sword, worth 3 million, as he knew he couldn't afford it himself. He received notifications that he leveled up, but soon, 2 more Lycans appeared. One of them grabbed his sword but was unable to break it. Gaining confidence, Jin-Woo used his full strength to decapitate the Leaken. He compared these beasts to the godlike creature he had previously encountered and realized that, in front of that god, these monsters were nothing. Only one Leakin managed to escape, and after that, Jin-Woo noticed that his status had increased to level 2. His strength and abilities were growing much faster than before, and he realized that if he continued to fight, his stats would rise even more quickly. Jin-Woo inspected the defeated Lycans, hoping to find magic gems, but instead, he received a Lycan's Fong as a reward. In a game-like fashion, Jin-Woo was shown a shop option, though he couldn't buy anything yet as his level wasn't high enough. However, he was able to sell items for 20 gold coins. He wondered about the real-world value of these coins, feeling that even for an E-rank dungeon, 20 coins were too few. Jin-Woo knew that if he could find a teleportation stone, he could escape, but defeating the dungeon boss would be a difficult task. However, with his growing power, he thought he might stand a chance. Soon, 30 Lycans appeared, and instead of being afraid, Jin-Woo confidently prepared to fight them with his improved weapon. One by one, he sliced through them, remembering why he became a hunter, to pay for his mother's medical bills and support his sister. Having already faced death once, he no longer feared it. After defeating the Lycans, Jin-Woo earned the title Wolf Slayer, but his sword had taken considerable damage. He reflected on how even the strongest weapons could wear out in dangerous battles. Jin-Woo leveled up again and received 34 wolf fangs, 2 daggers, a traveler's cloak, and, finally, a teleportation stone. He now faced the decision of whether to leave or continue fighting to grow stronger. After some thought, he decided to stay and fight. Meanwhile, Juhee, a healer, was contacted by the Hunter Association about a dungeon break. She blamed herself, thinking that her refusal to go on the mission had caused the catastrophe. Despite not being at fault, she accepted the blame. The association informed her that they were short on healers and needed her help. Back in the dungeon, Jin-Woo was facing increasingly dangerous monsters, and his strength was becoming formidable. He learned that when a beast's name appeared in white, it was weak. If written in orange, it was of equal strength to him, and if in red, the beast was much stronger. After several level-ups, Jin-Woo had grown more experienced, and his perception had sharpened. He could now sense the presence of a dangerous beast hiding below the station's flooded stairs. Jin-Woo's level had reached 15, but he noticed that his progress was slowing down, and his sword was nearing its breaking point. However, he continued to press on. As he descended, a beast named Blue Venom Fong Kasaka, the boss of the dungeon, emerged from the water. Kasaka's armored scales were so tough that Jin-Woo's sword, though weakened, broke while trying to inflict damage. Despite being thrown around and injured by Kasaka, Jin-Woo's confidence remained unshaken. Motivated by his past experiences, Jin-Woo refused to give up. He remembered Song's words that people might call him weak, but he needed to prove them wrong. Song had encouraged him to train and become stronger, and now Jin-Woo was determined to do just that. Comparing Kasaka to the godlike creature he had encountered before, Jin-Woo realized that even the strongest beings could be brought down if one gave their all. Fueled by newfound enlightenment, Jin-Woo distracted Kasaka and managed to latch onto his neck, breaking through the beast's armor and snapping its neck with his bare hands. He had become so strong that he could kill the beast without any weapon. Kasaka was finally dead, and Jin-Woo felt a sense of satisfaction, acknowledging that he had indeed become stronger. After defeating Kasaka, Jin-Woo received a powerful dagger made from bones, which had the ability to paralyze its target. This C-rank dagger was highly valuable. He also acquired Kasaka's venom gland, which was an A-rank item, though it came with a risk. Drinking it would increase Jin-Woo's physical damage by 20%, but at the cost of potentially permanent muscle damage. With Kasaka defeated, the station returned to its normal state. As Jin-Woo left the Haejong station, a guard, not recognizing him at first, realized Jin-Woo was a hunter and treated him with respect. The guard informed Jin-Woo that most of the beasts had been defeated, except for one boss that remained. Sensing a dungeon break, Jin-Woo's sharp perception told him that the most dangerous beast was still nearby. Some low-rank hunters were attempting to fight the boss but were no match for its strength, as it had a protective shield around it. Among them was Juhee, still shaken by the events. Jin-Woo, observing the situation, realized that the boss was weaker than Kasaka, the monster he had just defeated. He prepared to throw his broken sword at the boss, which shattered the beast's armor, allowing the hunters to finally defeat it. Though they initially took credit for the victory, one of the hunters realized something strange had happened. Jin-Woo's broken sword had flown through the air, and a guard confirmed that a lone figure had thrown it. The hunter grew anxious, wondering if a high-rank hunter had passed by unnoticed. Next day, we see a hospital scene where Jin-Woo is continuously focusing on his workout. Because of this, his body has become quite impressive. One side effect of this is that all the nurses in the hospital are quite impressed with his physique. They initially thought he was just a regular guy, but now they are amazed at how his physical appearance has transformed due to his constant workouts. When a nurse enters Jinwoo's room, she sees him shirtless and thinks to herself how impressive his body is. She came to inform him that he's getting discharged today. Before he leaves, the nurse asks for his number, and Jin-Woo, thinking she needs it for medical reports, gives it to her. He muses that life is really something. Meanwhile, we are shown a scene with an S-rank hunter named Beck. His abilities are incredible, and he is giving an interview where he explains that he was once a firefighter. Even while fighting in dungeons, he had to keep up with tough training to avoid slowing down. This interview is being watched by Jaina, Jinwoo's sister, as she gets ready for school. Jaina notices that Jinwoo's height has also increased and that he has developed abs. She asks him if he's been working out. Jin-Woo, on the other hand, is still adjusting to the fact that his abilities and stats have grown significantly. Jin-Woo has completed all his goals except for running 10 kilometers, which he plans to do later. He also has some unallocated points and debates whether to focus on strength or agility. Strength would increase the impact of his punches, while agility would enhance his ability to dodge attacks. He splits the points between both. Just then, Jin-Woo receives a call from his landlord asking for rent, which he hasn't paid in a while since he was in the hospital. However, Jin-Woo is now stronger and more confident. Where he once struggled to defeat goblins, he can now handle them easily, so paying the rent shouldn't be a problem. Jin-Woo realizes that if he wants to earn more money, he'll need to enter higher level gates, but since reawakening is rare, he's still stuck as an E-rank hunter. He also can't openly tell people about his level up ability, as it's an unusual and rare occurrence. Later, Jin-Woo meets a group of hunters led by Dong-suk. Because Jin-Woo is an E-rank hunter, he's often assigned trivial tasks, such as carrying supplies, while the stronger hunters handle the battles. Dong-suk informs Jin-Woo that there's no healer in their group, as hiring one would be too expensive for a private team like theirs. Jin-Woo senses something fishy about this group, but he keeps his thoughts to himself. A new member, Jin-Ho, joins the group, and despite being a D-rank hunter, he possesses high-quality armor, which makes Jin-Woo suspect that Jin-Ho's family must be wealthy. The group enters a large dungeon, and while it's dark and ominous, they don't encounter any magic beasts for a while. As they proceed, Jin-Woo uses his instincts to predict that they'll be attacked from above by insect-type beasts. Thanks to his warning, the team prepares themselves and successfully fends off the attack. Jin-Woo notices that, despite their lack of a healer, the team has good coordination, indicating that they've worked together for a long time. Even though Jin-Ho doesn't have many skills, his high-quality weapons allow him to fight effectively. After defeating the beasts, Dong-suk thanks Jin-Woo for his quick thinking. The group then discovers injured beasts that seem to have been attacked by something else. They suspect there's a boss nearby. In a parallel scene, we see a gym where a hunter, who is a guild master, is training and demonstrates incredible strength by breaking a huge boulder with a single punch. Back in the dungeon, Jin-Woo and the team continue exploring but still haven't encountered many beasts. They stumble upon a large number of mana crystals, which makes them ecstatic since this means they've hit the jackpot. Jin-Ho, with a good heart, suggests that Jin-Woo should also get a share of the crystals despite the contract stating otherwise. Dong-suk agrees, but before dividing the spoils, they need to deal with the dungeon boss, a massive spider monster that's currently sleeping. Dong-suk instructs Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho to stay behind while the others go to gather mining tools, claiming there's no danger as long as the boss is asleep. However, Jin-Woo recalls that Dong-suk had previously mentioned they always operate without a healer, and he begins to suspect foul play. Sure enough, Dong-suk reveals his true colors and traps Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho inside the dungeon by triggering an explosion, intending to leave them behind as bait for the monster. Jin-Ho, shocked by the betrayal, regrets ever bringing up the contract and the mana crystals, but Jin-Woo realizes they were planning to kill them all along. Just as they are trapped, the dungeon boss, the massive spider monster, awakens. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo tells Jin-Ho to stop as he's about to fight the spider, explaining that this is a C-rank dungeon, and it usually takes at least a B-rank hunter to defeat such a boss. Jin-Woo himself is only E-rank, and even though he has leveled up, he's still weak compared to the spider boss. Despite this, Jin-Woo continues attacking the spider relentlessly. Jin-Ho watches in awe, wondering if Jin-Woo is a fake ranker, someone who controls their magic energy to appear weaker than they actually are. Jin-Woo notices that his fatigue is rising, and unless he finds the spider's weak spot soon, he won't be able to defeat it. He remembers his dagger has paralysis venom, and after some effort, he finds the spider's weak spot. The spider launches a poisonous attack, melting the ground, but Jin-Woo dodges using his dash skill and attacks the weak spot, though it doesn't seem to do much damage at first. Jin-Woo keeps attacking, and eventually, the paralysis sets in, helping him defeat the spider. Jin-Woo levels up again, becoming the master of the dungeon. Jin-Ho is shocked to see that Jin-Woo has single-handedly taken down the boss, believing now that Jin-Woo might indeed be a false ranker. Jin-Ho, who has been humbled, offers to help Jin-Woo mine the mana crystals. Dong-suk's gang returns, shocked to see that Jin-Woo is still alive. They speculate whether the spider was weaker than it looked, or if Jin-Woo's powerful equipment helped him win. Dong-suk reveals that he researched Jin-Ho and discovered that his father is the head of a huge construction company, then offers Jin-Ho a deal: kill Jin-Woo in exchange for staying alive. Jin-Ho, however, sides with Jin-Woo and prepares to defend him. The gang attacks, and just as Jin-Woo is about to retaliate, he's interrupted by a system prompt telling him to defeat his enemies, which disappears before he can fully read it. The fight begins, and Jin-Woo is injured but quickly recovers using his reward points. He slays the gang members one by one, and Dong-suk, the last one standing, powers up using his enhancement skill. Despite this, Jin-Woo defeats him easily and finally kills him. As soon as Dong-suk dies, the dungeon collapses, and Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho escape. An assistant reports that everyone in the C-rank dungeon is dead except for Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho, assuming that Jin-Ho defeated the boss while Jin-Woo hid. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo feels grateful that he asked Jin-Ho to bring an umbrella, as it starts to rain. The scene shifts and we see a powerful man who seems to be Dong-suk's brother, hinting at the next challenge for Jin-Woo. We see Jin-Woo coming home with some food, and when he sees it, Jaina becomes very happy. Along with burgers and chicken legs, he also brings some beer. When Jaina talks about the dungeon raid, Jin-Woo feels very upset thinking that he himself had taken the lives of real people with his own hands, and at that moment he hadn't felt bad at all. He wasn't even thinking about it. Now, his enemies are no longer magical beasts but humans. We are shown that when Jin-Woo drinks alcohol, a notification pops up in front of him, stating that a harmful substance has been detected in his body, which is stabilized and detoxified. When he takes another sip, the same thing happens again. He realizes that the system has a special ability that prevents him from getting drunk. Later, when he checks his rewards, it is clearly written that his body will detoxify, and no poison can harm him. He remembers that his hands and legs were severed in the double dungeon, and maybe it was with the help of this ability that they regenerated. This means that he can regenerate. When Jin-Woo wakes up the next morning, Jaina tells him that a person named Jin-Ho called and wants to meet him. Jin-Woo then goes to a cafe where he meets Jin-Ho. They talk for a bit, and Jin-Ho thanks him for saving his life and says thank you so much. Jin-Woo replies that he's also grateful that Jin-Ho kept his secret, and thanks him for not telling anyone about the incident. It's obvious that if people found out that Jin-Woo had killed all those hunters by himself, there would be chaos. Jin-Ho also gave the magic gem to Jin-Woo. He then asks for a favor, saying he wants Jin-Woo to join him in 19 more raids because he wants to become a guild master. To become a guild master, one of the conditions is to participate in 20 raids. Jin-Ho has already completed one raid with Jin-Woo, and now he's asking for Jin-Woo's help with the remaining raids. Jin-Woo considers it and listens to him. Jin-Ho explains that his father's company wants to form their own guild to send their team into dungeons and make money. As you know, there are a lot of mana crystals and magic stones inside dungeons, and dangerous weapons can also be made from the monsters' corpses. So, a lot of money can be made from a dungeon. Jin-Ho's father knows this, so he's doing it for profit. Jin-Ho also says that after forming the guild, they will hire an S-rank hunter and make Jin-Ho's brother the deputy or vice president. Now, there are only 7 S-rank hunters in the country, so it's unclear how they would be able to hire one. Jin-Ho reveals that there's only one who has never joined a guild, and that is Min Bangju, who has now retired. Jin-Woo understands that Jin-Ho is doing all this for his father's company to ensure their guild's success and to become a guild master. Jin-Ho offers Jin-Woo 30 billion won for joining him in the remaining 19 raids. But Jin-Woo thinks that since his abilities can continuously improve, he could even become an S-rank hunter himself someday. So, 30 billion won wouldn't be a big deal for him. He declines the offer and prepares to leave. Jin-Ho tries to blackmail him subtly, saying that he will keep Jin-Woo's secret safe forever and won't tell anyone about it. But if Jin-Woo doesn't join him, he might reveal it. However, Jin-Woo ignores him and walks out. Next, we see Dong-soo, who is Dong-suk's older brother. In the last episode, he was introduced at the end. He asks his assistant for reports on the 2 people who survived the dungeon. He asks what would happen if he killed someone in another country. His assistant tells him that depending on the laws of that country, he could be prosecuted there, but negotiations might be possible based on their country's laws, reducing his sentence. Dong-soo looks at the profiles of the 2 survivors and sees that they are low-ranking hunters, and he feels he can easily take them down. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo is at the park with Jaina, doing some exercise. While running, Jin-Woo asks her what she would do if she had 30 billion won. Jaina replies that she would use it for their mom's medical bills and college fees, and save the rest. Jin-Woo then notices that his daily quest is complete, and he's run 11 kilometers instead of the required 10 kilometers. He wonders how that's possible. He does some push-ups and notices that he's completed double the required amount, which earns him additional rewards, including full recovery and 10 ability points. He is also given a choice between a blessed loot box and a cursed loot box, and he chooses the blessed one. Inside is a key to enter a dungeon beneath the dancing tower, with a reward called the Elixir of Life, which can heal any illness. Seeing this, Jin-Woo becomes very happy. He remembers his mother and thinks that if he gets the Elixir of Life, he might be able to completely heal her. The doctors had said she couldn't be cured, so this is his last chance. He goes to the dungeon, uses the key to open the gate, and enters. He realizes that this dungeon is incredibly powerful, with magical energy on par with an S-rank dungeon. He remembers the incident at Jeju Island, where the S-rank hunters were overwhelmed by magic beasts, and realizes this dungeon might be similar. Still, Jin-Woo enters the dungeon because he has a teleportation stone, which he obtained from an instant dungeon. If anything goes wrong, he can use it to escape. As he prepares to fight the dungeon's beasts, he wonders if he can handle them. He draws his dagger and faces a dangerous beast called Cerberus, which is stronger than him. Despite using his dash skill and landing continuous attacks on Cerberus, it has no effect. Jin-Woo's health drops to 30% after one attack. He uses his full recovery skill as he has no other choice, and attacks Cerberus again, targeting its eyes. However, poison, paralysis, and other skills have no effect. Cerberus's attacks are so powerful that Jin-Woo's health keeps dropping. He hides and realizes that the system doesn't want him to die, as notifications keep popping up, indicating that this situation isn't like a normal reawakening. Cerberus remains in its enraged state for only 3 more minutes, after which it will return to its normal form. Jin-Woo considers using his teleportation stone, but Cerberus finds him and attacks, causing him to drop the stone. With only 10 to 12% health remaining, Jin-Woo is in grave danger. He checks the shop and finds a divine healing potion for 300 gold coins, which can restore 100 health points. However, it wouldn't be enough. Jin-Woo remembers the venom gland he obtained after killing Kasaka, an A-rank poison that could increase his power by 20% but cause 35% muscle damage. However, since his body can't be affected by poison, he thinks the muscle damage might not occur. He decides to take the risk and drinks the venom, then continues to fight Cerberus. Finally, after 3 minutes, Cerberus returns to its normal form. Jin-Woo unleashes powerful attacks on Cerberus's eyes and manages to defeat it. His level increases and his injuries are healed. He also obtains a special item called the Elixir of Life. However, the system notifies him that he needs 3 ingredients to create the elixir, all of which are located inside a demon castle. Jin-Woo realizes that he can't enter the castle yet, as this dungeon was already challenging. But he is determined to go there eventually. He decides he needs to level up and become stronger, which leads him to meet Jin-Ho. Jin-Ho had previously offered Jin-Woo to join a C-rank raid, which Jin-Woo agrees to. Jin-Ho's father needs at least 20 C-rank raids completed to establish a guild, and Jin-Ho has already completed one. Jin-Woo, however, insists that the two of them will go alone to the raid. Jin-Ho is hesitant because C-rank dungeons require a minimum of 8 members, but Jin-Woo assures him they can hire other members like they did before. Jin-Ho worries about the risk, but Jin-Woo says there's no such thing as a raid without danger. The scene shifts to Cha-Hae-in, who is seen training. After her training, she looks radiant but is interrupted by a scout from Eugene Construction, Jin-Ho's father's company, who approaches her. She informs him about her decision to turn down their offer. At the same time, we see Jin-Ho talking with his father about the massive changes the world has seen since the gates appeared 10 years ago, changing infrastructure, economy, politics, and media. Next, we see Jin-Woo running, realizing that his regular exercises are no longer increasing his stats. He recalls a penalty zone where he fought a centipede-like monster, considering that fighting it again could help him level up. But before he can think further, he receives a message from the Hunter Association inviting him to participate in a D-rank gate. Meanwhile, we see several other characters receiving the same invitation. Mr. Song, a retired swordsman who has lost an arm, and Kim, a family man with financial worries, are also invited. Kim's wife is concerned about the dangers of being a hunter, but Kim reassures her that lower-ranked hunters don't face significant dangers. As the D-rank gate raid is about to begin, Jin-Woo reunites with his former party members, including Ju-hee and Mr. Song. These are the survivors from the infamous double dungeon, where they had left Jin-Woo behind, thinking he wouldn't survive. Ju-hee is overjoyed to see Jin-Woo alive and well, noting how much stronger and taller he has become since their last encounter. Just as the group is about to start the raid, 3 convicted criminals, sentenced to work with the hunters, join them. Though the group is uneasy about this, they have no choice but to work with them under the supervision of Kong Tae-sik, a B-rank hunter. Jin-Woo warns Ju-hee that it might be better for her to drop out of the raid since it's dangerous, but she refuses, asking Jin-Woo what he plans to do. Jin-Woo firmly replies that he will participate. Once inside the dungeon, these criminals start ruthlessly killing goblins. Sung comments that it's hard to tell who the real beasts are, the goblins or the criminals. Jin-Woo shows off his amazing skills, impressing many. With his dagger, Jin-Woo takes down all the goblins, leaving Ju-hee and Mr. Sung in shock. Mr. Sung even notices a change in Jin-Woo's aura. As the group progresses, they find 3 separate tunnels. T-sik takes the right tunnel with the criminals, while Jin-Woo, using his perception technique, identifies that the boss is in the left tunnel and heads there with Mr. Sung and Ju-hee. Meanwhile, Kim and Kong head down the middle tunnel. Kim has been killing many goblins, and he admits that he feels guilty for leaving Jin-Woo behind and wants to apologize properly when they get out. T-sik, with the criminals, witnesses their cruelty. He confronts them, asking if they enjoy killing humans as much as beasts, to which they respond that there's no difference between the two. We also get a backstory about one of the criminals. His daughter was wronged by 3 people, leading her to commit suicide. His wife, unable to handle the trauma, was hospitalized. The 3 perpetrators will soon be free, living their lives as if nothing happened, still holding their hunter licenses. The criminal offers T-sik 3 billion won to kill these men, knowing that since criminals sent on red missions often die in dungeons, nobody would find out what happens inside. T-sik accepts, telling the criminals that he will report they died fighting 100 goblins. Meanwhile, Kim and Kang's paths intersect with T-sik's, and they discover he has killed the criminals. Back with Jin-Woo, he recalls an earlier moment when T-sik visited him in the hospital, but wonders if T-sik remembers since he had seen Jin-Woo as a weak E-rank hunter. Suddenly, the group hears a scream. They rush to find Kong dead and Kim severely injured. Jin-Woo, in shock, urges Ju-hee to heal Kim, but it's too late. Kim, before dying, apologizes to Jin-Woo, wishing to have apologized properly. T-sik, observing from above, suddenly attacks Ju-hee, but Jin-Woo swiftly blocks the attack. Mr. Sung, confused by T-sik's actions, asks why he killed the others. T-sik claims he has a perfect story ready, explaining the deaths as goblin attacks while the prisoners try to escape. T-sik moves to finish off Mr. Song, but Jin-Woo steps in, ready to fight. However, Mr. Sung pushes Jin-Woo aside, determined to fight T-sik himself, asking Ju-hee to enhance his powers. Despite the enhancement, Mr. Song, a C-rank hunter, struggles against the B-rank T-sik, who proves to be a skilled swordsman. Although Mr. Song holds his own for a while, he eventually becomes exhausted, and Ju-hee's healing abilities aren't strong enough to sustain him. When T-sik moves in for the kill, Mr. Sung unleashes a fiery magic attack, impressing T-sik, who didn't expect such a move. Before T-sik can finish off our Song, Jin-Woo finally steps in. T-sik, confident in his abilities, underestimates Jin-Woo. But as the fight progresses, their speeds start to match, and T-sik begins to struggle. The system alerts Jin-Woo that T-sik has become his enemy, and Jin-Woo's killer instinct kicks in. The two engage in an intense battle, shocking both Mr. Sung and Ju-hee. Mr. Sung reflects on how much Jin-Woo has changed since the day they first met and how difficult decisions must have shaped him into the person he is now. T-sik, believing that strength rules in the dungeon, uses his special ability to disappear, but Jin-Woo easily detects him and, after a fierce fight, kills him. As T-sik dies, he warns Jin-Woo that no matter how powerful he becomes, he will be consumed by the darkness, trapped in a place from which there is no escape. With T-sik dead, Jin-Woo completes the urgent quest and reflects on how much stronger he has become. However, he also realizes that as he grows more powerful, he's losing parts of his personality. Ju-hee and Mr. Song thank Jin-Woo, who tells them to leave the dungeon while he goes to deal with the boss. Elsewhere, the man who hired T-sik to kill the criminals turns himself in. Jin-Woo, Sung, and Ju-hee are cleared of any wrongdoing, as their actions were in self-defense. Ju-hee tells Jin-Woo that he has changed a lot, but she herself hasn't changed at all. Jin-Woo explains that life experiences affect everyone differently. Ju-hee then confesses that she was never cut out to be a hunter and that she's too weak. Despite her rank, which should have allowed her to go on A, B, or at least C-ranked raids, she only participated in D and E-ranked raids. This is why she met Jin-Woo and was able to help him on various occasions. Initially, Ju-hee was angry at Jin-Woo for not taking care of himself and getting injured repeatedly, but he always managed to survive. Ju-hee returns the crystal Jin-Woo had given her, stating that she is retiring and going back to her parents. She asks Jin-Woo to inform her if he ever comes to that area. Jin-Woo takes back the stone and promises to invite her for dinner when he visits. Next, Jin-Woo recalls a past scene and hears Jin-chul explaining that defeating Kong Tae-sik was no easy task. An E-rank hunter cannot defeat a B-rank one. Jin-chul tells him that he's reawakened, but warns him to take care of his life. Jin-chul also mentions the incident where Hong Dong's entire strike team was wiped out, with only 2 hunters surviving. Dong-suk, the younger brother of one of the fallen hunters, might come after Jin-Woo and his team. Jin-Woo knows that Dong-suk is an S-rank hunter and is shaken by the news that Dong-suk is after him. Jin-chul explains that S-rank hunters have little to no rules governing them, meaning Dong-suk could cause chaos without anyone stopping him. He describes him as a monster after their blood. Jin-Woo realizes that maybe he too should consider retiring as Ju-hee did, but instead, he decides to become even stronger. We then see Jin-Woo and Jin-ho entering a forest-like area for a C-rank gate raid. Jin-ho has gathered a team, but they're all hunters who are either too weak, disabled, or otherwise unfit for hunting. Among them is a young girl who gets angry when Jin-Woo calls her a kid, but she clarifies that she's a hunter, even though she's still in high school and has no experience. She turns out to be an E-rank hunter. Jin-ho and Jin-Woo's deal with the group and then the two of them enter the gate. The others will just wait outside. For this, they'll each earn 3 million yen. After defeating Kong Tae-sik, Jin-Woo had acquired a stealth stone, which granted him the stealth ability. Meanwhile, Jin-ho had bought a new piece of armor, but it was so heavy that he couldn't even lift it. As Jin-Woo and Jin-ho head inside the gate, we see scenes from Jin-A's school, where her friend Song-yi hasn't shown up. We later find out that Song-yi is part of this strike team. After an hour passes, Jin-Woo and Jin-ho have yet to return, which worries the team outside. But suddenly, Jin-ho appears running, and they see the gate closing, leaving them all in shock. Jin-Woo is leveling up quickly, and we're shown some brief fight scenes. While Jin-Woo focuses on combat, Jin-ho mines mana crystals, making them a good team. Jin-Woo also uses his stealth ability, which surprises Jin-ho, making him realize how powerful Jin-Woo has become. Since Jin-Woo now possesses the stealth ability, he also needs mana crystals to continue growing stronger. He considers entering the demon castle but realizes that although he can defeat monsters easily, he's still somewhere between A and B rank. He doubts his abilities but then receives a notification that he qualifies for a job change quest. In another scene, we're taken to the White Tiger Guild, where the manager is informed that a large sum of 150 million is being spent on C-rank gates, and that the leader of the strike team is Eugene Ho, the son of a construction company president. The manager also notices Sung Jin-Woo's name on the list and remembers him from the double dungeon incident. He theorizes that Jin-Woo has reawakened because he survived 3 major disasters: the double dungeon, the Hong Dong-suk strike team incident, and the Kong Tae-sik attack. He plans to scout Jin-Woo for the White Tiger Guild. When the manager finally approaches Jin-Woo, he offers to double whatever Eugene Construction is paying him, plus meet any conditions Jin-Woo might have. Jin-Woo asks how much the White Tiger Guild headquarters is worth, and when he's told it's around 50 billion, he responds that the building Eugene Construction offered him is worth 30 billion. The manager is shocked, realizing that Jin-Woo's contract is far more valuable than expected. Jin-Woo then asks the manager to keep his identity a secret, warning that if word gets out, he'll suspect them first. The manager agrees, not wanting to die. In the end, Jin-Woo offers the manager rights to 3 C-rank gates, sealing the deal. The manager is stunned by Jin-Woo's power and ability to negotiate. We see Jin-Woo leaving the town in his car and goes to a secluded place and decides to go on the job change quest. He is asked if he wants to accept this job change quest. He recalls that he has previously gone through 2 gates where he needed a key, and now this is the 3rd gate where he will enter with his own permission. Additionally, he has completed the emergency and penalty gates, but those were different cases. So, he basically realizes that if he is being asked whether he wants to accept this quest, it might be quite dangerous. However, one thing is certain, by entering this gate, he will become even more powerful. After this, he opens the gate, remembering that he hasn't completed his daily quest yet, but he can return to complete it later. He enters, and we see a scene of a guy sitting in an armory. On the other side, we see Jin and his dad, and then another guy arrives. None other than Burke, who is Jin-sung's brother. All of them are having a family dinner. Meanwhile, we see Jin-Woo entering the dungeon, and he is informed that he cannot use any potions or full recovery here. Look, until now, in all the dangerous dungeons Jin-Woo has entered, he sometimes needed full recovery because he doesn't know how powerful the opponent is. But in this dungeon, he cannot recover fully or use any type of potion. He takes out his weapon, and a knight-type beast appears. He begins to fight it, but Jin-Woo notices that none of his attacks have any effect on this beast. Its armor is extremely tough. Jin-Woo remembers that he had fought Kasaka, whose arm was very strong, and he had broken it with his bare hands. After this memory, he drops his weapon and breaks the knight's neck with his hands, after which the knight lies down. Shortly after, more knights arrive. Now, it's obvious that Jin-Woo cannot heal his damage, which is a significant problem, but this doesn't concern him as many knights prepare to attack. On the other hand, Jin is not eating, and his dad asks him what he is thinking about. Jin replies that there is nothing in particular. Jin's dad then asks how the guild creation is going. He mentions that he heard Jin had approached S-rank hunters, but they rejected his offers. Jin-sung confirms that it's true, Hunter Min Bangu and another hunter rejected his offers, but that's not a problem. There are some European and Middle Eastern hunters he plans to offer, and they won't be able to refuse because he knows what they want. Hunter Hwang Dong-suk is also in the same situation. Jin-ho thinks that they will be calling hunters from outside. Jin-sung advises Jin to focus on his personal projects, but to not think about getting in his way. Jin thinks that his brother doesn't even realize how powerful his boss, Jin-woo, is. We are shown Jin-woo again, and I thought that with so many knights coming in, he would face some difficulties in fighting them, but Jin-woo is incredibly powerful and defeats all of them because he has figured out their weakness is in their necks. When he finishes them off, he suddenly feels someone behind him, and there is a beast that can use a disappearing ability. It's an assassin. Additionally, there is a magician who can use light magic. Now, different types of beasts start appearing, and Jin notices that the arm of the beast is very strong, just like Kasaka's. It seems like he has fought this battle before, and they are all coming together against him. While fighting them, he understands that each beast has a different weakness and he needs to pay attention to each one and defeat them one by one. They are all attacking him in different ways, so Jin-woo must fight not just with strength but with his mind. Meanwhile, his fatigue is increasing and he has no options left because he cannot heal himself. On the other hand, we see Mr. Choi. As you might know, Mr. Choi has had a plan for a long time to raid Jeju Island, and he has gathered some exceptional hunters for this purpose. They say that the time has finally come, and Jin-woo takes a breather after defeating all the knights, collecting some items. This brings him some relief. He finds some protective gear, like a chest plate and various parts of armor that will reduce his physical damage. Additionally, these items are invisible, which helps Jin-woo move around without trouble. Finally, he reaches a large gate and realizes that the boss he needs to fight is on the other side. As he opens the door, a dangerous aura comes from inside, making his hair stand on end. Nevertheless, he enters. Inside, there are torches lit, and it resembles a throne room, similar to a king's chamber, where a knight is guarding the throne. The moment Jin sees this presence, he understands that this pressure is something he has faced before, during the double dungeon. Out steps the knight commander, Igris the Blood Red. Finally, Jin-woo and Igris are about to face off. Everyone understands that Igris is more powerful than Jin-woo and is very dangerous, as he emanates a terrifying aura. As soon as the battle begins, Jin-woo realizes after a few attacks that calling Igris powerful would be an understatement. He is on a different level. None of Jin-woo's attacks seem to affect Igris's armor, and Igris is exceptionally agile. Jin-woo realizes that while he can match Igris's speed, he cannot match his strength. You might remember that Jin-woo defeated Kasaka and the other knights with his bare hands, so he drops his weapon, understanding that he cannot break through Igris's armor with it. Igris, displaying a gentlemanly gesture, throws down his own weapon and invites Jin-woo to fight him with their hands. This is indeed impressive, but Igris remains overwhelmingly powerful. Meanwhile, we see the head of the Hunter Association working late at night. Mr. Choi informs him that they are about to leave, and the team is ready, thanking each other for making the Jeju Island raid a success. Mr. Choi mentions that this is their third raid mission, but the fight has never truly ended for him. Back in the fight, Igris begins to beat Jin-Woo mercilessly, showcasing his agility. Jin-Woo realizes that while he cannot increase his strength, he can double his speed to face Igris. He levels up his dash skill and starts moving around Igris quickly. Eventually, he gets close to Igris, but still cannot catch him. At one point, Jin-Woo gets a chance to kick Igris in the neck, momentarily stunning him, but Igris quickly recovers and becomes furious, attacking Jin-Woo even more fiercely. During Igris's last attack on Jin-Woo, he falls onto the throne and is out of breath. Meanwhile, we see scenes of Jin-Woo's mom. As Igris retrieves his sword, it automatically returns to his hand. Just as he is about to finish Jin-Woo, Jin-Woo manages to block Igris's attack with one hand and declares that he has not given up yet. At this point, Jin-Woo becomes serious and utilizes his various combinations, taking out his dagger to attack Igris in the eyes and face. Even after this, Igris doesn't seem too affected, but some blood comes out. Then, Igris begins to use Jin-Woo's dagger against him, and Jin-Woo thinks that he is trying to change his master with the dagger. But still, Jin-Woo quickly pulls out another dagger and continuously attacks Igris's face. Finally, he defeats Igris. Jin-Woo takes a deep breath, realizing he barely escaped today because, obviously, there was a huge difference in their experience, abilities, and skills, and today he won purely by luck. One mistake, and Jin-Woo could have lost his life. He receives 4 rewards, a leather pouch containing 1.5 million gold, the Crimson Knight helmet, an S-rank protective gear, and as you might recall, that Divin Castle requires S-rank equipment. Until now, Jin-Woo had never seen S-rank equipment, and this is his first. This will significantly reduce his physical damage. Additionally, he receives a rune stone, which he doesn't know the skill for yet but will find out later. Lastly, he gets a teleportation stone and wonders why he received it at this time, as he cannot store it in his inventory. He thinks this means the job change quest is not over yet. Just as he is pondering this, a notification appears behind him stating that he should survive as long as possible to earn enhancement points. With that, he bids farewell and exits. The system and timer activate, and Jin-Woo thinks about how he just finished fighting, when suddenly many portals open. Knights begin to pour out of these portals. Jin-Woo knows that no matter how many come, they cannot be more powerful than Igris, so he prepares to fight them, even though he is extremely tired. Meanwhile, Choi and his team are on a helicopter heading to Jeju Island. Jin-Woo uses his stealth skill, aware that activating it costs 200 mana, and every second of invisibility will cost him an additional mana point. He has only 190 mana points left, so he thinks he can buy as much time as possible. But then the magician realizes Jin-Woo's presence. Honestly, all the beasts have become advanced. Jin-Woo cannot use his stealth and murder intent, so he wonders how he will fight. Suddenly, the first attack occurs, and Jin-Woo bleeds from a significant cut on his back. Jin-Woo uses everything he has left. He opens the teleportation stone and prepares to escape, but suddenly a knight attacks Jin-Woo's and then the stone is thrown away, leaving Jin-Woo with no chance of escape. Jin-Woo thinks that he has lost his teleportation stone and he doesn't have time to search for it now. The only way he can survive is by defeating these enemies. After this, the monsters start advancing towards Jin-Woo, and Jin-Woo begins to take them down one by one. Jin-Woo mentions that he can't use his stealth and murder intent because his stamina has reached its peak, but he tells himself that he can't give up yet. After that, he starts dealing heavy blows to the knights. Jin-Woo is giving a tough fight to these monsters, but he also thinks about what it means to be at the bottom. No one knows this better than him, but he is always in search of getting more. Now, as Jin-Woo is fighting these monsters with his bare hands, he is also bleeding. Jin-Woo starts feeling slightly faint because, obviously, his stamina has decreased. At the same time, he begins to remember when everyone used to call him the world's most wicked hunter. Remembering these things, Jin-Woo starts to lose focus, which the monsters take advantage of, and they attack him twice. Jin-Woo feels as if Mr. Song is coming to him and telling him that it's enough, he shouldn't push himself too hard. Along with this, he also sees Ju-hee, who says the same thing to him. Now, Jin-Woo's old version appears, telling him that he is getting what he deserves. By the way, why are you doing so much math regarding such dangerous things? Do you remember that you used to be an E-rank hunter? Now look at how far you've come. This means that Jin-Woo's old version is insulting him. After this, the next scene shows a meeting in the office of Dent, where he mentions that he was not there during the third raid on Jeju Island because his body was not working. He then looks at Chief Woo and asks him to speak. He says he was also at the third raid with the security team. Then the president mentions that during that raid on Jeju Island, many people lost their lives, and those who survived have had that incident haunt them like a bad dream since then. After this, the next scene we see Jin-Woo, where his old version is about to insult him. The old Jin-Woo tells the current Jin-Woo that he can't recognize himself anymore, how tall he has become, and how good his body looks. Just look at how strong he has become, but all these things don't help. He is still weak inside, and right now, he feels like he is going to die again. Just then, a monster attacks Jin-Woo, and after this attack, Jin-Woo suffers a significant blood loss. Now, Jin-Woo starts having self-doubt again. His old version tells him that this is what happens when you try to show off as a hero. Now, see for yourself, death is standing before you. Jin-Woo thinks if the same thing is about to happen to him again, just like it did in the double dungeons. Now, Jin-Woo is in a state of dying, but his system tells him that his daily quest is still not completed. If he doesn't complete it, he will face a penalty. Here, the time for this quest is almost running out, and at the same time, the monster raises its sword to finish Jin-Woo. But then, Jin-Woo's old version tells him that it seems the system still won't let him die. Okay, then I'll leave now. Exactly this happens. Jin-Woo's system transfers him to a penalty zone. In the next scene, Jin-Woo finds himself in a penalty zone. Upon arriving, Jin-Woo thinks it's a good thing that he didn't complete today's quest. His life was saved. Now Jin-Woo ponders whether he received a penalty or if his system deliberately saved him. Here, Jin-Woo drinks 3 potions from his store, which helps recover his energy. After this, he drinks another potion but at the same time reads a notification that informs him that if he gets severely injured once, he won't be able to recover his HP no matter how many potions he drinks. So he only has 2 options left: heal naturally or level up to heal. Just then he sees many monsters appearing in that penalty zone, and now he has to survive among them for 4 hours. However, this time, Jin-Woo doesn't run away from them. Instead, he starts inflicting significant damage on them. Because if he does this, he will level up even more. The next scene shows Jin-Woo at home, where his sister wakes up in the middle of the night because she had a bad dream. As she goes to the living room, she notices that her brother Jin-Woo hasn't returned home yet. She feels that Jin-Woo might have gotten a girlfriend, but we know the truth. In the next scene, we see that Jin-Woo is leveling up easily. He has defeated all the monsters, and he says that healing through leveling up is much easier. He still has 10 minutes left, so he thinks about repairing his weapons. He goes to the store and buys a Night Killer sword, which is very famous as it deals over 25 damage to armored monsters. The sword is a bit expensive, but it's good. After this, he also sees a rune stone that he received after defeating Igris. Using this stone unlocks a new skill for him called Roller's Hand. Interestingly, using this skill doesn't drain any of Jin-Woo's mana. With this ability, Jin-Woo can manipulate any object he touches. This is the same ability that Igris used. Jin-Woo thinks about using this skill, but he realizes he cannot use it on large monsters. At last, Jin-Woo says that he has prepared everything, and now he is ready. Whatever is written in fate will happen. In the next scene, Jin-Woo teleports back to that dungeon and notices that the number of monsters has increased even more. The next scene shows Choi and his guild, who learn that they have reached near Jeju Island. Choi tells Chai that he knows this might be a little painful for her, but she responds that it's no problem since she wasn't a hunter during the 3rd raid, but she knows how he must be feeling. The pilot informs them that he is detecting multiple sources emerging from the water. The next scene is again of Jin-Woo, where he is easily using the Night Killer to defeat the monsters. Jin-Woo feels something strange. He wonders why he isn't leveling up after killing so many monsters. He notices some mages that are not attacking because only the knights are attacking. Jin-Woo realizes that the mages are summoning the knights, so now his main target should be the mages. Jin-Woo does exactly that and throws his sword towards the mages, killing one, and upon defeating it, the number of monsters decreases. This makes Jin-Woo realize that he now has to kill the remaining mages, but these mages are hidden. So, Jin-Woo has to kill the knights to find the mages. Now, as Jin-Woo finds and kills the mages, the remaining mages use their magic to create golems. Jin-Woo uses his intellect and thinks that instead of attacking the golems, he should find and kill the mages, so he starts dodging the golems. Finally, he manages to defeat the remaining mages, but he notices that the golems are still attacking him. However, Jin-Woo uses his extreme power and defeats one golem as well. Now, finally, all the monsters are dead, after which his system tells him that Jin-Woo has completed the job change quest. The system notifies Jin-Woo that wherever the player goes, the Angel of Death will follow him. Now Jin-Woo doesn't understand what this means, but then his system informs him that his hunger for power will increase, aided by some ghosts, and these ghosts will clear the path for the Shadow Army. Now, Jin-Woo's system tells him that he is a necrolytic class, which can summon undead monsters as servants. Well, now Jin-Woo's system asks him if he wants to accept this job. Jin-Woo declines, but then his system prompts him again to check once more. Jin-Woo isn't clear about what to do, so he thinks for a long time and finally agrees. After this, the next scene is of the Hunter Association president, who mentions that morning is approaching and Choi and his team must have reached Jeju Island by now. The president says, "Yes, you might be right." The next scene shows Jin-Woo, where he is experiencing some strange things, and by strange, I mean very bizarre things. Black energy is emanating from Jin-Woo's body. After all this, his system tells him that he sees monsters from whom he hears some strange sounds. Now, once again his system appears and tells him to create a command word. Jin-Woo thinks about what word to choose for giving commands. He decides on the command name Arise. As soon as he says Arise, shadows attack and come out, looking something like this. His system tells him that his new skill is Shadow Attack and Shadow Storage. Using this skill will drain his mana, but with this, he can create a shadow army that he can summon anywhere whenever he wants. However, he has to keep in mind that he needs to successfully extract the shadow of something, otherwise, it won't work. After their date at the amusement park, they both go home holding hands. The next day at school, we see Rentaro introducing AI as his 4th girlfriend to Hikari, Inda, and Shizuka. As expected, Inda is furious at him for doing it the 3rd time, but who's going to tell her that 96 more girls are yet to come? Meanwhile, Hikari and Shizuka are comfortable with the thought of AI also being Rentaro's girlfriend as long as he doesn't leave them. After a few days, we see Inda shopping for a swimsuit in a shop, and she is really angry at Hikari for suggesting a pool date out of nowhere. She is worried because she has never been on a pool date with anyone and doesn't have a swimsuit for such an occasion. Finally, she decides to buy a white swimsuit. Thanks for watching guys, and yes, don't forget to subscribe.